We should be live. Just want to check the chat, make sure this is working all right. Everyone can hear me okay. I think there's somewhat of a delay. Yeah, okay, that's good. All right, so the purpose of this stream. So I can't help but notice the last few days maybe it was a mistake, but I've gotten involved with sort of conservative Twitter and the Irish Twitter sphere. And I can't help but notice how interested in Israel these people are. And I know people on the right tend to be very pro-Israel, but it seems like they go above and beyond. What highlighted this to me was there was this guy Keith Mills who they used to wheel out for these discussions about gay marriage. He was the token, he's a homosexual himself, so they used to bring him out as the conservative voice against gay marriage. And there's all these people. They're always the conservative voice on television, but I couldn't help but notice some connections these people have. And so I'm going to get into it now. So this is kind of what started all this. Just one second. I'm a bit of a boomer here. Hold on. I want to find the original tweet that linked all these together. Okay. So basically, there's a few prominent conservative figures that kind of occupy the entire space of conservatism in Ireland. Now, one of them is this guy, John McGuirk, who he runs this website called Gript. And this is meant to be the big alternative news website in Ireland now. This is meant to be the source of like Ireland's dissident right. And it's like the only place that talks about immigration and refugees and the migrant crisis and all this kind of stuff. So this is John McGuirk, contributor for the Irish Catholic, runs Gript, and you see he's regularly on all these popular TV shows in Ireland. He's regularly on popular radio shows. So he's like the token conservative that we allowed. And he's another very pro-Israel guy. But let's start here, right? So this woman claims to be the Department of Justice. There's some footage of her where she's at a meeting regarding migration and she's attacking the people there and speaking down to them. I can't play the video of it. But she's director of Irish Refugee Protection Programme and she's the chairperson of the Holocaust Education Trust Ireland. Obviously, that's somewhat interesting. And then you see that she's always speaking at these events about the Holocaust. Evelyn Byrne is the chair of Holocaust Education Trust in Ireland. She's always at these events, Holocaust commemoration, yada, yada. But then she works for a Department of Justice and she's responsible for integration service delivery, which means she is head of the department that delivers efficient, robust, and customer-centric services to support the integration of migrants, resettlement and relocation programs. So this is the woman, and this is the department, and this is the section of the department that is over resettling migrants into small Irish communities across the country. And there's footage of her going around to these small communities, telling them basically, deal with it, and you're going to have to face this forced diversity. And she's also head of this Holocaust commemoration thing. So that's an interesting coincidence. And now let's look on. So that's Evelyn Byrne, right? So then obviously our ruling party is Fine Gael. And Fine Gael is, the centre-right neoliberal party here. And it's interesting if you look at, so I thought Fine Gael, right? Where would you look for Fine Gael? Well, if you look at young Fine Gael, and the reason I looked at young Fine Gael is because we know that Israel heavily lobby youth organizations of political parties. You can watch the documentary, The Lobby, and you can see this. There's a documentary done by Al Jazeera where it shows that Israel spends huge amounts of money on lobbying and sending young conservatives and young Labour Party members to Israel. on these paid trips where they're basically bribing them into supporting Israel. They give them these paid luxury trips or whatever. And so, okay, so who's the leader of Young Fine Gael in Ireland? This is, potentially a future leader of the country. He's in a very high position. So this guy, Killian Foley Walsh. And you look at Killian Foley Walsh, 2016. After 42 hours, 3 flights, and 3,000 miles, I finally arrived in Israel. It's strange and a little unnerving to be standing in a country that many so irrationally want to see ended. So Killian enjoys his trips to Israel. And then let's go back, right? Let's look at. Hold on a second. I'm going at something else now. Okay, I think I've closed. Oh yeah, here it is. So then the national panel. So you see this name, Art O'Mahony. So this guy is National Secretary and Director of Campaigns. So this is another very senior position in Young Fine Gael. And we look at Art O'Mahony. Passports at the ready for the young Arthur O'Mahony, who is jetting off to the West Bank, where he will experience at first hand the effects of boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. A propaganda trip arranged courtesy of the Ireland-Israel Alliance. O'Mahony is National Secretary, a towering status which apparently makes him marks the 20-year-old student out for grooming by Israeli diplomacy. So this is pretty typical. They get to the young wings of the parties, and they pay for these elaborate trips to Israel to show them how unfairly the Israelis are persecuted. And this goes deeper in the Irish education system. And Trinity College has very strong links to this Hebrew University of Jerusalem. And so they're often inviting speakers from Israeli universities. But under the Freedom of Information Act, some information was released that they didn't want released. Stephanie O'Toole discovered via Freedom of Information request that college has agreements with HUJ, which is partially built on illegally occupied lands, and 2 other Israeli third-level institutions. So, that would seem like a problem given Ireland's supposed neutrality. But as you'll see, neutrality isn't something that's actually taken very seriously here by conservatives. Now, this was actually the tweet that sparked it all. This is what I was looking for either. So this is Professor Jeremiah Hunkelberg. And this is a thread of him noticing things. So he's noticed, and this is the curiosity that sparked my curiosity. So this is Keith Mills, right, this token Irish conservative. Thankfully, Irish people don't need a safe homeland. Jews earned their homeland in the most awful way possible. So Keith Mills is complete open borders for Ireland. He's been getting into it with us on Twitter. He doesn't believe in race, but he thinks he can test Jewishness with DNA. He doesn't think Ireland is anything but an economic zone, and at the same time, he's a rabid Zionist, and he defends the right of Israel to be a Jewish state. And then you see this shot next to it, and this is Keith Mills has been to Tel Aviv. So he's there for Eurovision. So you think, well, okay, maybe he just wanted to see the Eurovision. But no, the problem is he's made multiple trips. Look at this, LGBT Live. Love equals Tel Aviv Pride. And I don't know if you can see that, but Keith Mills says, I was there. So he's made, because this is from 2016, so that's well before that Eurovision. So apparently Keith Mills makes multiple trips to Tel Aviv. Now, that might just seem like a coincidence or whatever. Well, let's go down, right? So this is John McGurk, who I mentioned earlier, runs this big, supposedly alternative media site. And the problem is he's not a nationalist, and here you see him attacking the National Party. Now, John McGurk, one of my first encounters with him was he was saying that there's a very simple solution to migrant resettlement in rural Ireland. Just give these communities tax breaks and buy them off, and that's the solution. And then you won't have these evil Nazi fascists making hay with this situation. So that's John McGurk attacking nationalism. And here he is. Traffic is very heavy in Tel Aviv. People seem to avoid public transport here because it's an obvious target for the terrorists. Yeah, so what is John McGurk doing in Tel Aviv? Sorry, again, I have this stuff all over the place. But so I asked John McGurk about this. I was curious, and I'm going to show you his response. I'm just saying, I don't think, yeah, thankfully Keith Mills hasn't deleted all these incriminating tweets. Oh, actually, before we get on to John McGurk, yeah, so this is Keith Mills defending the Jewish state of Israel. This is Keith Mills saying that Ireland should have a population of 10 million brought about through inward migration. So I'm just going to let those load up. Don't forget to join Entropy. This is my first time live streaming, so I want to test out Entropy. So if you can post questions and chats there, I have a poll up. Will a nationalist win a seat in the general election? So I'm interested to hear what people think about that. Now we're going to get on to Alan Shatter later. I don't know why this isn't loading. Okay. Well, anyway, while I'm waiting for that, so this is John McGurk. So John McGurk was defending this supposed peace deal today between Israel and Palestine, and he said it's the deal of the century, and the absolute madman Trump might well have just pulled off the deal of the century. And I said, well, it's a great deal, giving Israel everything they want, if that's your idea of a peace deal. And he says Israel does not need peace to get everything it wants. It's won the conflict, blah, blah, blah. And I said, John, have you ever taken money or availed of paid trips from Israeli lobby groups? And John McGurk says, it's not a secret that I visited that beautiful country on one occasion as a guest of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Highly recommended, lovely people. So this is the lead guy in this alternative conservative movement in Ireland. And he's been a guest for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel. That's quite interesting. And now then there's this guy, David Quinn, right? David Quinn is director of the Iona Institute, which is a big conservative Catholic think tank here, sort of lobby organization. Receive a lot of money and donations. It's not made public where the donations come from. And here again today, this is all these guys seem to post about. He's complaining that only 13 MPs elected to the House of Commons have failed to sign the definition of anti-Semitism used by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. 7 of them are Sinn Féin. Shameful. So David Quinn is advocating that we expand the definition of anti-Semitism. And look, John McGurk jumps in to attack me. I'd say that they supposedly support free speech, but they're looking to expand this concept of hate speech to include anti-Zionism. And of course he plays dumb. What law do we want? I oppose hate speech laws, but I'm fine with calling out anti-Semitism where I see it, which incidentally is on the feeds of many of your followers. Well, this is the problem with this, right? He says he's opposed to hate speech laws, and he'll win support among dissident right people and among nationalists for being a free speech warrior and for calling out the government. But look at what David Quinn and John McGurk are supporting and are lambasting Sinn Féin MEPs for not supporting MPs. So this is going to be the new definition of anti-Semitism, right? According to the Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, and they're pushing this out across every Western country. So this is the new definition of anti-Semitism, right? Dehumanizing, blah blah blah, accusing Jews for being responsible for real or imagined wrongdoing, denying the fact, scope, mechanisms, e.g., gas chambers, or the intentionality of the genocide. So any revisionism about the Holocaust, this is all of course, all this is anti-Semitic, but there's some new interesting stuff on this. Accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or to the alleged priorities of Jews worldwide than to the interests of their own nations. Well, okay. So, if a person is to say that Jared Kushner, who negotiated came up with this peace deal between Israel and Palestine and immediately went on television and said that the Palestinians won't accept this because all they ever do is reject everything and blow everything out. If you said that maybe the fact that he used to sleep on Benjamin Netanyahu's couch, and you can look that up, if you said that maybe him being good friends with Netanyahu and having all these close connections to Israel, that maybe he has some loyalty to the state of Israel, you're an anti-Semite according to this. Denying the existence of the state of Israel, or saying that the formation of the state of Israel was a racist endeavor, that's anti-Semitism. Applying double standards by requiring behavior of Israel that you wouldn't expect of other nations. And so, who decides what double standards are? Drawing comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis. So, if the Israelis are talking about the Holocaust and genocide, and you point out what they're doing to the Palestinians, that's anti-Semitism. Holding Jews responsible for the actions of the state of Israel, even if they benefit from them. So that's going to be the new working definition of anti-Semitism. Now, these conservatives, McGurk says to me, well, of course I support this, but I don't support hate speech laws. And then he can wash his hands of it when they're throwing people in jail for anti-Semitism. But look at what this is really for, right? French Parliament adopts controversial law linking anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. So what happened was the French Parliament voted to adopt this definition of anti-Semitism. And that means now that this is law, that if you breach the terms of anti-Semitism proposed by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, you will be thrown in jail. So French people now can't criticize Zionism or the state of Israel without risking imprisonment. And of course, he washes his hands of it. I oppose hate speech laws. I'm fine with calling out anti-Semitism. So this is the usual slippery approach of the conservatives. But look, remember this guy, David Quinn, right? He's chairman of the Iona Institute. And David Quinn, sorry, 1 second. Yeah, these connections with the Catholic community go deeper. So, right, this is David Quinn with Michael Kelly. Now, Michael Kelly is editor, if I'm not mistaken, of the Irish Catholic, big Catholic newspaper here. So these are the guys that are really these are the political voice for Catholic Ireland, David Quinn and Michael Kelly. And here they are in Dublin celebrating Israeli Independence Day. And I could have brought up many of these tweets. There's many things like this. And this is the Irish Catholic. So what kind of stuff does the Irish Catholic produce, you might wonder? Maybe they're not biased because of it. And this is another guy that's included in Mr. Hunkelberg's noticings here. And look at that. Wonderful to be in Jerusalem tonight. I always feel strangely at home here. Isn't that funny? Yeah, he feels very at home. He feels very at home in the Jewish state of Israel. And here he is attacking nationalism. For Catholics, the only reaction to refugees and asylum seekers must be concern and welcome. It's funny how these things always go hand in hand, isn't it? And so this is what the kind of thing that the Irish Catholic produces. Is it time for the Vatican to rethink its line on a two-state solution? Or here's a good one. Israel's efforts to make peace are constantly rebuffed. Israel just wants peace. That's why they're building settlements in Palestinian land all the time. But, according to the Irish Catholic and according to the many, many Catholics that read this stuff in Ireland, they're getting this idea that Israel are victims and Palestinians are the aggressors and Israelis just want peace. And this guy, Michael Kelly, is putting this out, and he's happily availing of his trips to Israel. And here's Keith Mills, the guy we talked about earlier, writing for theliberal.ie. And what does he choose to write about? Israel, our front line in the battle with terror. And don't forget, this man, I've showed you a couple of trips he's made to Tel Aviv. So this is the kind of crap that they're pumping out into Irish media. No, so this is, hold on a second. Yeah, so this is Keith Mills, where he's arguing about DNA tests. I'm going to have to scroll up a bit here. So he's arguing that Israel is not a racial state. And I point to him that the Israeli High Court has approved DNA testing to prove Judaism. And he tells me DNA and ethnicity are two different things. So I asked him, are you telling me that DNA is there to prove their religion? And he says they're there to prove Jewishness if you don't have proof of religious observance. Basically, anyone who would have met the Nazis' definition of being a Jew is entitled to Israeli citizenship. But after that, there are ways to support claim like DNA. So he's conceding that a DNA test is used to decide if you want to be an Israeli citizen, or the Nazis' definition of being a Jew. And at the same time, he's arguing with me that Israel is not a racial state and that race doesn't exist. So I mean, this is the kind of thing you're dealing with. Here he is. Someone asks him, "How many people do you actually want to come into Ireland?" Because all he's doing is talking about economic benefits, migration, nothing but good. And someone asks him, "How many exactly would be good for Ireland?" Because he says, "Ideally, I want a country that can provide opportunity and equality for as many people as possible." And Keith Mills wants 10 million people in Ireland. This is what these Zionist conservatives want: 10 million people in Ireland. I mean, you don't even hear this from the worst of the far left in Ireland. Here he is. Israel's raison d'etre is a safe Jewish homeland. That's not Ireland. Ours was self-determination. Well, this is just factually wrong, but I mean, he wants 10 million people, so that would make Irish about, what, 40, 50% of the population. Let's see how safe we are then. Right now, this is another conservative. This guy's just a complete neocon, right? This is Mark Humphreys, who's a PhD. He's a lecturer in a big Irish college, right? And another respected Irish academic. His website is absolute boomer tier stuff. I'm just going to pause for a minute. I want to check entropy because I've just been looking at that window. So I just want to make sure entropy is working okay. As I say, I haven't used this before. Okay, that's taking ages to load as well. I don't know what's going on tonight. All right. Well, anyway, let's get on with this. So this guy, Mark Humphreys, I should have brought up some more information on him. I guess I can look at the about. Okay. Well, he's an academic. He's another guy that gets invited on popular programs. He's a defender of Israel, of course. So, yeah, Mark Humphreys, right. What am I? Atheist, classical liberal, pro-freedom, pro-free speech, pro-Israel, anti-jihad, anti-Sharia, anti-communist, anti-Corbyn, neocon, pro-Reagan, anti-Obama, anti-Trump. Trump isn't enough for neocon from end communism, end Islamic law. So, I mean, this guy is just the worst of every world. And here he is. Thankfully, he's provided this himself. Me at an Iron Dome battery outside Ashkelon, Israel in December 14. As a friend of Israel, I was privileged to get a tour of this and other IDF facilities, the front line of the liberal, secular West against the jihad. I mean, where do you even start with this guy? But what I find funny about this guy is he's just an open neocon, which is, it's pretty funny to read this stuff now because most neocons try and hide what toxic beliefs they have. But this guy, in defense of cultural imperialism, many traditional cultures need to die because they're the major source of oppression in the world. The Western model is destroying traditional cultures using seduction, not force. And this is funny because all the people that rail at me for attacking capitalism and they call themselves traditionalists, they're traditionalists that want finance capitalism and low taxes. This guy is like making an argument to his own people that like capitalism is like the best thing ever for just destroying everything, for just infecting. Like, look, the West infects the world with lowbrow culture that appeals to their young people. Companies like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, shows like Baywatch, and people like Madonna do deserve a Medal of Honor and struggle for human freedom. So here he is saying that Coca-Cola, McDonald's, junk food, crap popular TV, these are our weapons in the struggle for human freedom. And this is how our elite perceive it. And then he's having a go at people for laughing at him. And then he has a big long thing going into how evil racism is. But then he says that basically all non-Western cultures are backward and we need to destroy them. And he says, vulgar Western advertising, sex-obsessed, objectifying women spreading around the world. Hooray, let's have more of it. The world needs more threats to traditional cultures, not less. This is the kind of people you're dealing with. traditional cultures, major source of violence, blah, 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 the superiority of the West. And now he gets into, look, anti-racism, it's culture, not race. And he gets into how great the West is because we have free speech and feminism. And there's a section here, I don't know, maybe it's on another page, where he says that money really does buy you happiness because you need money to have a good standard of living, all this stuff. Of course, oh, here's like all his favorite Israelis. Of course, that doesn't agree with the facts that Western countries are less happier by every metric now in our developed economies. But here's what's interesting on his website. He's got this logo, Freedom House. Liberal democracy everywhere, no exceptions. End tyranny everywhere. End all non-democracies on earth. And that Freedom House logo is interesting. So you wonder what's that doing on his website. And he's got it again in this article, this like logo popping up. So I mean, why is he promoting, why does he have their logo on his page? So let's look at Freedom House, right? Freedom House is a US based government NGO. It's funded 66% by grants from the US government. Oh, actually, it increased 86%. So this is a wing of the US government. And their stated aim is to promote democracy and freedom around the world. So basically, they're promoting the values that he's talking about there: feminism, liberalism, anti-Islam, capitalism, destroying traditional cultures, all the things he loves. I'm having, yeah, okay, I've got Entropy open now. Is Entropy working for everyone else? It just seems to be a bit slow for me. Okay, anyway. Yeah, so this guy loves Global Homo. Global Homo is basically his ideology, and he's rabidly pro-Israel. And then you look at, so this is an interesting organization, right? Even aside from Ireland, this is very interesting. This organization, its job is to promote Global Homo around the world. Like that's all it does. It was involved in a scandal because they're basically involved in covert operations where they're like supporting and sending money to dissidents in countries like Iran, like trying to overthrow other governments, designed to defend human rights and promote democratic change. Whether the people want it or not, they're forcing democratic change. So this is, we act as a catalyst for freedom through a combination of analysis, advocacy, and action. And sometimes the action means funding of foreign dissidents. So this is how the US, this is how Global Homo wages war across the world in traditional societies. And let's look at who's on the boss, right? Michael Chertoff is the chair. Now, those of you familiar with history and those of you that know some of the theories out there about 9/11 may know this guy. This guy was Secretary of Homeland Security during the Bush era, and he co-authored the Patriot Act, which was the act that stripped Americans of their civil liberties, brought in this police state, gave all these powers of surveillance to the government. Let's smash Michael Chertoff's early life. Born in Elizabeth, New Jersey, his father was Rabbi Gershon Baruch Chertoff, a Talmud scholar, yada yada. And so this guy is just a total neocon over Homeland Security during 9/11. Worked for the Bush administration, brought in the Patriot Act. He's the chair of this organization. This is what he's doing now. He's retired from politics. And let's see, I think there's a president. Yes, the president of this. Oh yeah, this is this guy, Michael J. Abramowitz. And this is the president of this Freedom House organization that's tasked with spreading globalism and liberalism and feminism and all this good stuff. Michael J. Abramowitz, he's an interesting guy. And I mean, you just look through, I mean, this is all available. This is all public. Just look through the names of these people. Right. Michael Chertoff, Carol Edelman, Goli Amory, David E. Byronbaum, Dennis C. Blair, Michael J. Abramowitz, Alexis Schuler. So I'd be interested to hear if this guy that I showed you, this Irish neocon, is getting funding from these people. I asked him on Twitter and he responded that he doesn't do what he does for money. And then I said, well, can you clarify and can you tell me if you've ever received money from these people? And he said, who are you? I don't have to tell you anything. So that's a strange response because, at first he was receptive to me and he was replying. And then he got very touchy when I asked him about that. I'm just trying to... Open entropy. Okay. Yeah, okay, entropy is working for me now, so I can get to your questions at the end of this. Yeah, I recommend everyone go to entropy, so you can actually say what you want there. Maybe someone can post the link in the chat, and I've got a poll up there as well. Well, people think that the nationalists are gonna win a seat in the election. I mean, I'm hopeful, but yeah. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. Right, back to the Zionists. Okay. So now, Alan Shatter. Some of you, we have to get to Alan Shatter. Alan Shatter was the Minister for Defence and Foreign Affairs. Right, there's Alan Shatter. And he was again part of the Fine Gael party, our centre-right neoliberal establishment party who are currently in power. Right, now, what did Alan Shatter do in politics? This is all Wikipedia, This isn't exactly a source you'd expect to be really anti-Alan Shatter or anti-Israel or whatever. But during the 2009 Gaza war, so this was when there was a big thing. He started calling everyone anti-Semitic because they were criticizing Israel. He supported the invasion of Gaza in 2009. He attacked Israeli historian Ilan Pappé, who says that the foundation of Israel was an ethnic cleansing. He attacked him and accused this respected historian of biased scholarship and historical inaccuracies. And this was during a council where this guy was invited to give an expert opinion. Shatter attacked him. He opposed any sanctions on Israeli settlements, and he called this cultural fascism. I remember this. So he was Minister for Justice and Defence. Of all the ministerial posts he could have picked, he wanted justice and defence. And don't forget that justice and defence, that's who's over our borders, who comes into our countries. That's who's over our military. So what was his record? Under his guidance, major reforms were introduced in 2011 into Ireland's citizenship laws, and a new citizenship ceremony was created. So he got through all these applications that were dormant for years. 69,000 foreign nationals became Irish citizens, and these were in elaborate citizenship ceremonies. A general rule that all properly made citizenship applications should be processed within a 6-month period. So thank God for this guy. He was very efficient. He sped up our process in naturalizing migrants and took steps to facilitate an increased number of political refugees being accepted into Ireland, and to create a special scheme for the facilitation of Syrian families. And here's an interesting old article from the Irish Independent. Shatter won't rule out buying more weapons from Israel. And don't forget, according to this definition of anti-Semitism being promoted by Irish conservatives, if you're to accuse this man of having any loyalty to Israel, you'll be an anti-Semite, and that'll be hate speech, and you'll be going to jail. So Justice Defence Minister Alan Shatter has refused to rule out Ireland buying more Israeli weapons. Now, don't forget, Ireland is meant to be a neutral country. It's written into our constitution. Ireland has spent over 14 million euros on Israeli weapons in recent years, despite UN claims that it's committed war crimes during its previous invasion of Gaza, and the use of Irish passports by Israeli Secret Service as a cover in murder and political assassinations. So how are the Israeli Secret Service getting Irish passports with Alan Shatter as Minister for Justice? How did that happen? And why wasn't this ever looked into? Why does this just get swept under the rug? There's an article in the Irish Independent, and then no one says anything because they don't want to get accused. They don't want to get the usual labels thrown at them. And if you think this is all conspiracy theories, right? This is the JC.com, right? I don't know what the C stands for, but this is a prominent Israeli publication, right? Meet our man in the Dáil, right? So any YouTube moderators looking at this, right? I'm not making any conspiracy theories here. This is straight from an Israeli publication. Meet our man in the Dáil. Lawyer Alan Shatter, Ireland's only Jewish member of parliament, has become Minister of Justice, Equality and Defence. He is the author of many private members' bills which were subsequently enacted into laws in Ireland. A staunch supporter of Israel, Mr. Shatter clashed repeatedly during the Gaza incursion in 2009. And here they have highlighted he is a staunch supporter of Israel. So they were overjoyed with this, and rightly so, because he got straight to work on buying Israeli arms and suddenly the Israeli Secret Service were popping up with Irish passports. Now, this is a good article that summarizes what Shatter's record was as Minister for Justice. I'm just going to check the chat again, make sure everything is running okay. Irish Furian just asked, can he re-up this on his channel? Absolutely. And any Irish nationalist, I don't know if I'm going to leave this on YouTube. I suspect it's going to get taken down. It might get me a strike. Any moderators watching this, you know, this is all, I'm just using original sources, just pointing out links. But any Irish nationalist, I would actually urge you to share this, because there's serious infiltration going on and there's serious controlled opposition. And there are people falling for this stuff that really should know better. And this is all there. This is a couple hours of research. There's far more out there, and these are very hostile people. If anyone is thinking of taking me lawsuit for this over defamation, just know I don't have any money, so you're wasting your time. I'm just gonna have a quick look at entropy. Yeah, okay, so that seems to be working fine. Chat's going. Okay. I'm just seeing some very very bad chats there. You can't be saying that stuff. Okay, so right, this article on Shatter. So before Shatter, the Irish government had taken steps to reduce non-European immigration, including abolishing automatic citizenship for children born to foreigners. That was a vote by the Irish people, voted overwhelmingly to get rid of birthright citizenship, and drastically reducing the admission of asylum seekers. Since taking office in early 2011, after his Fine Gael party ousted the ruling Fianna Fáil among Ireland's continuing economic woes, Shatter has busied himself with increasing the numbers of Africans and Asians resident in Ireland. Immigration to Ireland from outside Europe during 2011 was twice that of the previous year. Now, that is quite a rise, and that is clearly politically motivated. That is clearly this guy getting into office and making a decision to do this. Last year, the Irish natural... And another thing, 2011, our economy was on the rocks then. Right, everything crashed around 08, 09. And we had years of austerity up to, what was it, 13, 14 maybe later. But 2011 was one of the worst years, and we were getting real draconian budgets. Twice that of the previous year. The Irish Naturalisation and Immigration Service granted visas to 91% of the 88,000 non-Europeans who applied for them. 91% approval rate at a time when our economy was on the rocks and we had a huge unemployment rate. An additional 115,000 migrants arrived from outside Europe were given permission to remain in Ireland in 2012, with India, China, Nigeria, Turkey, and the Philippines among the top 6 countries of origin. To be sure, the number of permits to non-Europeans to reside in Ireland has declined over the previous 2 years, but only because Shatter's ministry has been granting them citizenship at several times the rate of the preceding years. And again, all of this is sourced, links to all of this stuff. Shatter is aggressively promoting new measures to further increase non-European immigration, including making immigration easier for investors and entrepreneurs and their families. More ominously still, he is working industriously to replace existing Irish legislation on foreign immigration, including applications for asylum, with a bill that will, according to Shatter's stated priorities for the current year, radically reform and modernise Irish immigration law. Shatter has attempted to veil his immigration policies under the subterfuge of streamlining administrative procedures. So this was what I mentioned earlier in the wiki article, that he streamlined this and he made it so that everyone has to get approved or rejected within 6 months, and of course they all get approved. After all, while exposed to the same globalist propaganda and pressures as America, the Republic of Ireland is a small and still largely homogenous nation. It is also a land in which cant about a nation of immigrants won't sell. Well, I'm seeing people trying that now. Until only a couple of decades ago. Okay, so that's happening here. Ireland was a nation of immigrants, and today Irish unemployment. So at the time this was written, when he's doing all this, Irish unemployment is 15%, and he's doubling the rate of immigration. So that's very noteworthy. Now here, okay, I thought of not including this, right? And I know a lot of people watching this will be members of Irish Freedom Party, or will be tacit supporters of them. And look, I'm not going to have a go at the Irish Freedom Party is basically our version of UKIP, our exit. They're for leaving the EU, and I'm not going to have a go at the party. I'm not saying everyone should leave it. I'm not saying that they're bought and paid for. I don't think they are. But it was very strange how much they reacted to me asking them why. Like, they were supporting the bombing, the murder of Soleimani, and they were supporting Israeli incursion into. They were supporting an act of war against Iran. And the justification was that all these neocon talking points, Iran are one of the largest exporters of terrorism in the world. And then, of course, I get blocked for asking them, how does this benefit Ireland? Once you ask them that question, they go silent. They can't really think of a way how blowing up a country in the Middle East benefits Ireland. But I was happy to let this go. But then, the leader of the party, Herman Kelly, is on Twitter calling me out as a Hitler admiring, fascist sympathizing, Islam adoring, National Socialist Keith Woods. So now look, I may be a fascist sympathizing, Islam adoring, National Socialist, but I am not. Right. Look, the point is, right, Herman Kelly used to be editor for the Irish Catholic, right? That publication I mentioned earlier that has an editor that is a staunch pro-Zionist. Okay? And so this is another link in this chain. David Quinn, the Iona Institute, very pro-Israel. John McGurk sharing stuff around on Gript. The editor of the Irish Catholic is putting in all these articles about how the Israelis just want peace. Herman Kelly was editor for that guy, and now he's head of this Our Exit Party. Herman Kelly, look, I don't know what to make of him, but I mean, I saw him on a stream and he was saying he was against hate speech laws because he said the great thing about free speech was you had somewhere like in the UK, free speech laws exposed, or having free speech exposed the leader of the BNP for being a racist, and that we need free speech to expose racists. And they never call themselves nationalists. They're patriots. They want to leave the EU so they can have lower taxes and so that we can, I don't know, have our own brand of feminism. But again, I don't have a go at these. And if someone's a member, look, I don't think the party's infiltrated or whatever. But there are definitely people in this party that are staunch Zionists that are hiding this so they can appeal to nationalists. And some of these links are quite concerning. So, Herman Kelly is constantly having a go at me on Twitter. I'm not going to have a go at him back. You have to respect anyone that's in this. But the Zionism thing is concerning. And so that is the state of the conservative movement in Ireland, right? John McGurk, Grip Media, invited to Israel by the Ministry for Justice. The editor of the Irish Catholic, multiple trips to Israel, being invited to the Israeli embassy in Dublin. The head of Young Fine Gael. Hold on, I'm just going to turn this off. Yeah, the head of Young Fine Gael and most of the prominent members of Young Fine Gael getting trips to Israel paid for by Israelis. All of the major neocons in Ireland, all of the anti-Palestinian activists, all of these people seem to be connected to these foreign policy institutes in the US and all these places. Keith Mills, another voice that's completely astroturf. This guy, he's been on Twitter for 13 years and he has a smaller following than me. I was ratioing the hell out of him on Twitter. He has no organic following yet. At the time of the gay marriage debate, he was on every debate. He was on all the radio interviews. He's completely astroturfed. He has no audience. None of his talking points are popular. He wants 10 million people in Ireland. He wants 10 million people. He doesn't believe in race. He says the Irish don't deserve a homeland, but the Jews do because they earned it by their persecution, which is an outrageous statement to make to Irish people. And he's made multiple trips to Tel Aviv. So you can look into all of this yourself, watch this back, send it on to other nationalists, try and refute it. It's all there. And again, I'm not accusing anyone of directly being paid for or anything like that. But there are clearly connections here that go beyond them just doing this out of because they think it's the most moral thing. And what highlights this is the vitriol. They won't get passionate about any Irish issue, but if you say anything against it, against Israel, the vitriol you experience, they're blocking people. They're making these thoughtful posts about how deeply concerned they are by the rise of racism in Ireland and all this stuff. And where is the outrage for any Irish issue? You don't see it. They'll write these articles on their astroturf websites about the government raising taxes and this stuff. And the sad thing about this is that nationalists are falling for it. They think that this website Gript is some kind of hub for nationalists now, and a lot of supposed dissident figures in the right. I know some other people have pointed this out, and I could have brought up some other names here tonight, but I won't. But a lot of people posting neocon, pro-Israel, bomb Iran, uh, Iran treats homosexuals badly, Trump can do no wrong, all this kind of stuff from people that are leading the nationalist movement in Ireland. And I think it's very concerning. And people can say it's infighting. People can say stop punching right, focus on the left. But you know what? These people aren't actually our allies. And let's go lower this. Yeah, and so they're going to, as you see in the United States, what happens with the conservative movement? They'll talk about nationalism, they'll talk about closed borders, and they'll put it in there with the Israel stuff and the low taxes. But all you'll get if they get elected is the Israel stuff and the low taxes. They'll stab you in the back on the immigration stuff. So if someone is promoting Zionism and nationalism, tell them to go the other way. I'm just going to get some of these super chats. I'm still working out entropy, so if I miss something, I do apologize. How do I highlight a chat? Let's have a look. Hold on a second. Yeah, someone says Ian O'Doherty's another one. I mean, every right-wing journalist in Ireland is just rabidly, vitriolically pro-Israel. And so it's interesting to look at some of their connections. Okay, the Thin Red Line says, good luck in the elections, Irish brothers and sisters, and thank you, Keith, for sharing this knowledge and wisdom. Well, thank you very much, Thin Red Line, and I recognize that username. He's been on this channel from the very early days. Thanks for all your support. Don't forget, maybe someone can post the entropy link in the chat. I don't think I can post it from here. Let me try. Yeah, if you want to see what's going on in entropy, and there's a poll there as well. Rian Macon Bretnova, $5. Do you think I'll be allowed back in Ireland and my land's restored from these commie bastards? Well, I'd certainly allow you back in Ireland, but if Keith Mills and John McGurk and Alan Shatter are in power, you won't be allowed back in because we need to make room for the many Syrian refugees. Keith Mills thinks Ireland can fit 10 million, so maybe he can squeeze you in there along with the many millions of other non-Irish migrants. Thin Red Line again. I was speaking of an alliance where whites and blacks each got their own homeland. Could I think there's still okay? So he's talking about South Africa there. I don't know an awful lot about the situation in South Africa. I can't really comment on that. I don't know if there's a way to retrieve chats. I think I might have just closed someone's super chat. If so, I really apologize if I missed a question there. Aton Vac asks, might John Waters do better than the National Party? Well, John Waters is running in Dunleary, which is a very, very liberal. It's like the wealthiest part of Ireland. So that's going against him, but he does have serious name recognition, and there won't be other people like him running there, other conservative voices. So he could do well. But I think the most likely elected candidate for the National Party is definitely James Reynolds, the deputy leader in Longford. His odds went from 66-1 to 5-1 with Paddy Power. He's got serious momentum. He's running a good campaign. Longford has really suffered from migration, so he has a chance. Someone's asking me to do streams on religion and philosophy. Yeah, maybe. This is my first stream. To be honest, the only reason I did a stream was because there was so much stuff here to put in a video. It would have just been a nightmare. And I thought it'd be easier to just do the screen share and get through all this. Someone asks my thoughts on German idealism. I'm pro-German idealism. Maybe that's for another stream. Yeah, Schopenhauer's one of my favorite philosophers, so I don't know if you count him in German idealism after Fichte, Schelling. I think he counts. But yeah, do you think the Kalki avatar will come from? Where do I think it'll come from? I don't know, but I hope it comes soon. Keith, ever considered becoming a TD? No, I've never considered running for politics. If I was going to run for politics, I would have mediated my message a lot more. I think some of the things I've said, Irish Freedom Party are able to bring up screenshots of politically incorrect stuff I've said, and if they're going to be calling me out for being all these buzzword names, I'm not sure what chance I'd have with the mainstream media. But no, I wouldn't like to mediate. I wouldn't like to moderate my message for a political audience. Keith, do you know of Johnny Gatt? Yes. Someone says search Richard Coudenhove Kalergi and Alan Shatter comes up. Well, that would make sense. Iona also funds Gript. Well, I didn't know that, but it makes sense. All these people are connected. And this is, as far as I'm concerned, an astroturfed movement. And they don't have support among ordinary people. You can look at the reactions on Twitter. These people with 10,000 followers and they get no reacts to any of their tweets. They're completely astroturfed. If the nationalist movement had the money of some of these people, Declan Ganley is funding some of these institutions. He's a multimillionaire. Iona Institute gets a region of 400 grand a year. Look, if we had that kind of money, I'm sure we could do great things, and I think we'd be a lot more popular than there. Yeah, that's the super chat I missed. Richard RMDWD. Thanks, Keith. Keep it up, Corkman in AZ. Is that Australia? Well, thanks very much, Richard. Thanks for your support. Right, so I think that covers everything. I'll leave it at about just under an hour. So again, if you want to share this around, I think I'm not just looking to get views on my channel or anything. I'm going to upload this to BitChute. I'm not sure if I'll keep it up here. It might get taken down anyway by the YouTube censors. But the conclusion of all of this, I haven't cherry picked. These are the main conservative voices in Ireland: the head of the Irish Catholics, the guy running Gript, the guy running the Iona Institute, the big Catholic lobbyist organisation, the big conservative think tank, multiple journalists, multiple conservative journalists, the head of Young Fine Gael in Ireland, the other guy, the head of campaigns for Young Fine Gael, a former Minister for Justice, very high rank in the government. Who else do we cover? All these people, Trinity College Dublin, very closely linked to universities on occupied land in Israel, which it tried to keep secret before it was released under a request of freedom of information. Young Fine Gael, the conservative movement, these so-called dissident movements, all this Irish right, people that use the word patriot that won't say nationalist, that talk about how patriotic they are, that talk about low taxes and focus everything on Islam. They're completely bought and paid for. And I'm just after seeing another super chat come in. Great work you're doing, Keith. Love your stuff. Distant from America, trying his best chance to change minds over here. Well, thanks very much, Jesterhead. That's what it's all about, changing hearts and minds. And I do think we are having an effect. And the IFP were quick to get on Twitter the last time and make sure everyone knew that they're against foreign wars, because suddenly they were getting a backlash from the nationalist community who were asking questions. Why does a pro-independence, patriotic party want to bomb a country in the Middle East? It doesn't make much sense, does it? So just to finish off, the poll, will a nationalist win a seat in the general election? 18 say yes, no, 9. Well, I'm hopeful. I hope we do. I think James Reynolds has momentum. He has a serious chance. People that do polls always underestimate populism, it seems, especially the last few years. We were told Brexit had no chance of passing, Trump had no chance of winning, but people go out and they say otherwise. And I know some people from Longford, and the only political issue they care about is what's happened to Longford in terms of immigration. And they will express to you some extreme nationalist sentiment, and not people that are into politics, but they live it. And so James Reynolds, as long as his name is out there, people know who he is, people knows what he stands for, he has a good chance. Here's another question. Patrick Bateman, have you seen 1917 and what do you think about it? I did watch 1917. I actually really enjoyed 1917. I think it's one of the best war movies I've seen. My favorite war movie is probably Downfall, and the great Irish one is The Wind That Shakes the Barley. But 1917 was something that really, it could have been cheesy and gimmicky because it's all one shot, but it works. It puts you there. And I always wanted Christopher Nolan to do a World War I movie. I always thought he would have done a fantastic job. I liked Dunkirk, maybe a little bit disappointed. I always wanted him to do an epic war movie like on Stalingrad or World War I or something. But this is pretty good. It probably will win the Oscar, and it probably does deserve it. Okay, I think that covers the question. Celtic Crusader, brilliant research, Keith. This has been much needed for a long time, so I'm really glad you've made the stream well. Thanks for that. He says, hopefully this gets shared far and wide. I hope so too. These people need to be called out. We need to remove Zionism from this movement. This is, an Irish nationalist movement, and when you see people talking about walls in the West Bank or talking about the plight of people thousands of miles away in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, or when you see people in prominent positions in political parties being brought on trips to Tel Aviv, I mean, those are warning signs. And I think everyone can draw their own conclusions from this, but I've drawn mine, and I don't think it's a coincidence that, as I say, I just started looking at one or two people, and it turned out every single individual in the Irish conservative movement I researched. I mean, you just search their name, use Bing instead of Google, search their name and search Israel, and you'll find pro-Israel articles next to something about how much they loved their trip to Tel Aviv. So there we go. And once again, if anyone's thinking of a lawsuit for this, I don't have any money except for these super chats. So don't waste your time, John McGurk or Iona Institute or anyone. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining me. Maybe I'll do this again. And as I say, try and share this around. No Zionism. Say no to Zionism when they try and mix it up with nationalism. We're not having it.